They thought I was erased, that I'd disappear quietly, like a name whispered in the dark and never spoken again. But what they didn't know was, I was the storm gathering in silence. I never thought someone could unwrite a life like mine. Not with a gun, not with poison, but with a lie, sharp, cruel, and precise. One lie is all it took. A rumor twisted and fed to the right mouths until it became gospel. They erased me from everything, my job, my friends, my own family. At first, I tried to defend myself. I sent messages, called, knocked on doors. But silence is its own kind of answer. Have you ever felt that? Being alive but invisible? Screaming inside a room that just won't echo? Let me tell you how it started. Because no one believed me then, and I have waited long enough to speak. I was 27 when it happened. Living in Portland, Oregon. Working at a creative agency downtown, design and branding. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well. I was good at what I did. I had a talent for color, for emotion, for stories told through shape and space. They said I was a rising star. There were whispers I might be promoted to creative lead within the year. My name was finally showing up in meeting rooms, on big client pitches. I wasn't just a designer, I was a voice. That's when it began. Not all at once. Just a little crack. A subtle shift in the way people looked at me. Like they knew something I didn't. Like my smile had a question mark at the end of it. At first, I brushed it off. Office gossip, maybe. Or jealousy. But then the meetings changed. My name started disappearing from emails I once led. I walked into the studio one morning to find someone else presenting a pitch deck I had stayed up 3 nights creating. No big deal, I told myself. Maybe it's just temporary. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. The first person to pull away from me was Claire. Claire and I used to get coffee together every morning. We'd walk to the corner cafe, complain about deadlines, and laugh about our love lives. She even helped me through a rough breakup 2 years ago. She was more than a coworker. She was a friend. Then one morning, she didn't meet me at the elevator. I texted her. Hey, where are you? I'm grabbing your usual. No reply. At lunch, she sat across the room. Not a glance. Not even a polite smile. I felt the sting like a slap across the face. Still, I tried to make excuses. Maybe she was going through something. But that afternoon, I saw her huddled with Rachel and Steve, 2 people I'd never been close with, whispering, laughing, glancing in my direction. You know that feeling when you become the punchline to a joke no one will explain? That was the moment I realized. Something was being said about me. Something I didn't know. The spiral was quick. Within days, my inbox was quiet. The team chats I used to light up with ideas went silent. My manager, Ben, a man who once praised me in performance reviews as indispensable, now barely acknowledged me. I requested a meeting with HR. A woman named Teresa smiled at me politely, asked if I was okay, but never followed up on my concerns. She shuffled a few papers and said, "We haven't heard anything unusual, Alyssa. Maybe take a few days off? Sometimes a reset helps." A reset? Like I was the problem. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my ceiling fan, turning like a lazy clock. I felt something break open inside me, something raw and hollow. What were they saying about me? What did I do? I retraced every step, every interaction, every conversation. Was it something I said? Did someone misinterpret a joke? A tone? But there was nothing. I wasn't perfect, but I was kind, hardworking, honest. Then came the message. An anonymous email. Subject: You should know. The body was short. They're saying you stole designs from the February pitch. That you plagiarized work from an old agency client. Ben's talking to legal. Be careful who you trust. I read it 3 times. Plagiarized? My stomach dropped. That pitch, the February one, was the one I stayed up all night refining. I even sketched the concept on a napkin during brunch with my sister. I had proof it was mine. Emails. Drafts. Notes. Why would anyone say I stole it? Unless someone wanted me gone. In that moment it clicked. Someone had taken my work and claimed it as their own, lied about it. And worse, everyone believed them. I wasn't just being pushed out. I was being erased. Professionally, socially, personally. When I tried to reach out to Ben, he refused the meeting. HR wouldn't return my emails. 2 days later, I received an email from the director's assistant. We've decided to part ways. Your final paycheck will be processed next week. Please return company property by Friday. No reason. No explanation. Just deleted. I wanted to scream, cry, punch a wall. But I didn't. Instead, I sat very still. And I made a decision. If they wanted to erase me, I would make sure I came back louder than ever. Not with screaming or vengeance, but with truth, with brilliance, with something so undeniable, they'd have to look me in the eyes again. They thought they had the last word, but I hadn't even begun my sentence. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped begging for clarity. Instead, I started gathering everything I had, every email, sketch, timestamped file, witness who remembered seeing me draft the original concept. I called my sister, who still had the napkin sketch from brunch. I pulled out my old journal, where I had jotted the first lines of the tagline in January. I built a case. Quietly. Thoroughly. Smartly. I didn't know exactly what I'd do with it yet. But I knew this. I wouldn't disappear. I wouldn't let them have that satisfaction. This is my story. It's not about revenge. It's about reclamation. They thought I was erased. But I had the last laugh. Because sometimes, the ones you silence the hardest become the voices the world ends up listening to the most. Before I was the woman they tried to erase, I was just Alyssa. A girl who grew up in Eugene, Oregon, surrounded by trees, rain-soaked mornings, and the smell of ink from my mother's printing press. My mom, Dana, was a poet. Not famous, but devoted. Her studio was tucked behind our little craftsman house, filled with books, calligraphy tools, and paper that looked too delicate to touch. I'd sit there after school, watching her shape words into art. I think that's where my obsession with design started. Not with fancy programs or ad campaigns, but with the way feeling could live in something visual. The way a single curve of a letter, a single space between lines, could say more than 1,000 words. My dad, Michael Morgan, was a history teacher. Quiet, observant, the kind of man who knew how to make people feel seen without needing to say much. He taught me to notice details. Everything has a reason, he'd say, even the silence. When I was 14, he gave me my first camera, not digital, film. You want to be good at design, he said, handing it to me. First learn how to see. That camera became my therapy, my lens into the world. By high school, I was the girl with ink-stained fingers and too many sketchbooks. I wasn't popular, but I wasn't invisible either. I had my circle, Lena, my best friend since 2nd grade, and Jordan, the boy I swore I'd marry someday. Spoiler, I didn't. Jordan moved to Seattle for college and fell in love with someone else. It hurt, but by then, I had other dreams. I wanted to make beautiful things. Not just for myself, but for others. I wanted to tell stories through design that made people feel something. I studied visual communication at the University of Washington. It wasn't easy. Money was tight. I worked late shifts at a diner, cleaned apartments on weekends, and taught myself Adobe Suite from YouTube tutorials at 3 a.m. But I loved every second. The colors, the structure, the psychology behind shape and typography. I graduated top of my class. At the end of year showcase, a recruiter from a small Portland agency, Bright Nest Creative, offered me an internship. It was unpaid, but it was real. I moved into a shared apartment with 2 roommates I found on Craigslist, survived on microwave meals and cheap coffee, and started building my career. For 5 years, I climbed quietly. I never demanded attention. I wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but I delivered. Always. My client decks got noticed. My rebrands got shared. Clients started asking for me by name. Ben, my manager, used to say I had soft power. The kind that didn't shout but shifted rooms anyway. That was the most dangerous kind of power in an office like mine. One that didn't play politics, just produced results. And in the wrong hands, that power becomes a threat. Let's talk about Claire, because she matters in this story. Claire and I started as interns the same summer. We bonded over terrible coffee and horrible bosses. We stayed late, helped each other with deadlines, even took turns bringing snacks for late-night edits. She was warm, bold, charming in a way I envied. But something in her shifted when I started getting more recognition. It was subtle. A joke here. A backhanded compliment there. "You're getting so many shout-outs lately, must be nice to have that underdog charm." I thought she was teasing. But looking back, it wasn't a joke. It was a warning. Ben, on the other hand, was someone I trusted. He wasn't just my manager, he was a mentor. He taught me how to pitch to clients, how to refine my work, how to protect an idea. I admired him. I never thought he'd be the one to believe the lie about me. Or worse, be behind it. But betrayal never comes from strangers, does it? It comes from the ones who know exactly where your soft spots live. There was one more person who shaped the woman I am today. My sister, Mia. 3 years younger.
Loud.
Fearless. The opposite of me in every way. When our parents died in a car accident during my final year of college, Mia and I became each other's lifeline. She was only 17. I almost dropped out. But she looked me in the eye and said, "If you stop chasing your dream because of this, I'll never forgive you." She moved in with me the day after the funeral. We grew up faster than we were supposed to, but we did it together. So when the silence started at work, when I was cut out, frozen, erased, it wasn't just my career that took the hit. It was my identity. Everything I had built. Every piece of me that had climbed from grief, fought for creativity, earned trust, it all began to crack. The loneliness hit hardest at night. I'd lie in bed, scrolling through photos from better days.
Group shots from office retreats.
Doodles I had made for Claire's birthday. Old texts from Ben, thanking me for pulling a project together at the last minute. And then I'd look at the timestamp on the termination email and realize I didn't exist to them anymore. But here's what they forgot. I wasn't just in that company. I helped build it. I wasn't just another name on the payroll. I was the one who redesigned the branding strategy that saved their biggest client. I was the one who created a viral pitch that brought in a tech giant 2 years ago. I was the one they leaned on again and again when things went sideways. They didn't erase a person. They tried to erase proof. But proof has a funny way of resurfacing, especially when you've kept receipts. When I was at my lowest, Mia came over with takeout and said something I'll never forget. "They may have stolen your story, LYSS, but they can't write your ending." That's when I started thinking bigger. What if I stopped trying to claw my way back into their world? What if I built something better? What if the last laugh didn't come from revenge, but from reinvention? It sounded impossible. But impossible is just a story people tell you when they're afraid you'll win. And I was done being afraid. The first time I heard Claire speak my name after I was gone, it was in a podcast.
Yes.
A podcast. A mutual connection had sent me the link. "Listen to Minute 37, she wrote. It was an interview on some industry talk show, focused on rising female creatives. Claire was the featured guest, glowing, confident, charismatic. She spoke about her journey, about collaboration, about staying inspired. But then, at Minute 37, the host asked, "Wasn't there some controversy on that tech rebrand your team handled last year? I heard someone accuse the agency of stealing work." And Claire, with the smoothness of a seasoned liar, said, "You know, in this industry, people sometimes get confused about ownership. There were early-stage contributions by others, but the final execution came from our internal team. It's unfortunate when emotions cloud professionalism." I sat frozen. Emotions cloud professionalism?
She was talking about me.
Painting me as hysterical, unstable, forgettable. And that's when I felt something click inside me, not fear this time, but fire. Let's rewind. After the company let me go, I spent the first 2 weeks feeling numb. It was like being gaslit on a corporate level. People I had laughed with, cried with, collaborated with, all pretending like I never existed. But beneath the heartbreak, I started taking notes. I documented everything. Every draft, every timestamp, screenshots of Slack conversations, email chains showing the evolution of the pitch, my own personal journal entries with date-stamped sketches and client insights. And the napkin from brunch with Mia? She still had it, tucked in her kitchen drawer, covered in my handwriting and original headline idea. Piece by piece, I rebuilt the timeline. But I knew I couldn't walk back into that building with a folder and a frown. No one was going to hand me back my reputation. If I wanted the truth to be heard, I had to be louder than the lie.
So, I made a plan.
I started freelancing under a pseudonym, LYSS and Company. Mia helped me build a sleek portfolio website. I launched an Instagram and LinkedIn page showcasing my work, designs I had archived, reworked, and pushed further. I reached out to small businesses, cafes, local wellness brands, people who needed design but couldn't afford agencies. I told them my story, but not all of it.
Just the part that mattered.
I used to work for a major agency. I left to build something more personal. They believed in me because I believed in them. And within 3 months, I had more client satisfaction than I ever had at Bright Nest. Then came the twist I wasn't expecting. A message. From Ben. Subject. Coffee. For a full minute, I stared at the screen. I thought it was spam. Or a prank.
But no.
It was real. Hey Alyssa. I know a lot happened. Would love to talk if you're open to it. I have some things I'd like to clarify. Let me know. The gall. This man, who let me be erased without a word. Now, he wanted to clarify? Mia wanted me to delete the message. But I said yes. Not because I forgave him, but because I needed to see his face when I told him I was no longer the girl he pushed out the door. We met at a cafe downtown. He looked the same, clean-cut, casual, fake sincerity painted all over him. I wore black. No makeup. No expressions. Alyssa, he said, reaching for a hug. I didn't move. So, I said, what's this really about? He sighed, glanced around. Look, I'm not proud of what happened. I wasn't in control of everything. Claire made a lot of noise. And HR, well, they didn't want drama. So they made me the drama, I said coldly. He shifted in his seat. I know you probably hate me. No, I cut in. I just don't believe you anymore. He tried to explain it all away. How pressure from higher-ups forced him to act fast. How there were gray areas in the project timeline. How Claire was more aggressive behind the scenes than he let on. But the truth was he knew. He always knew. And he didn't defend me. Then he said something that changed everything. Listen, I've been watching what you're doing with LYSS and Company. That latest wellness campaign? It's genius. We actually have a client who's looking for something like that. Maybe there's a way to. I laughed. Out loud. Let me get this straight, I said. You erased me, then watched me rebuild from scratch, and now you want to use my work to impress your client. His mouth opened, then closed. You can leave now, I said. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Because he realized I wasn't coming back. And he no longer had the power to silence me. Still, I wasn't done. Because they were still profiting from my work. That February campaign, the one Claire claimed, it was now being used by a national skincare brand. A brand I had once dreamed of pitching to. And my words, my designs, were on every screen. I reached out to a legal contact Mia found through a friend, a woman named Simone, who specialized in intellectual property. She reviewed the evidence. You have a strong case, she said. But it's not just about the legal fight. It's about visibility. You need to tell your side. Publicly.
So I did.
I wrote a piece. An open letter. Not bitter. Not petty. Just the truth. I titled it, The Invisible Creator, How One Idea Cost Me My Job and Launched My True Career. I posted it on Medium. Then LinkedIn. Then Instagram. Within 48 hours, it went viral. Designers shared it. Creatives commented. People who had experienced similar gaslighting in corporate environments called it a mirror to their own pain. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. Everyone in the Portland agency circle knew exactly who I meant. A week later, Brightnest issued a bland, generic statement about creative ownership and internal investigations. But the damage was done.
To them.
Because the truth has a heartbeat. And once you let it out, it won't stop echoing. My inbox exploded with offers.
Podcasts.
Panels. Brand collaborations. People wanted to hear me now. But I didn't do it to be famous. I did it to reclaim my name, my worth, my voice. Because here's the thing no one tells you. The world will always have people like Claire. People who smile to your face and steal behind your back. But if you stay silent, they win twice. Once when they erase you. And again when you let them keep the pen. Not me. Not anymore. The world didn't hand me justice. I created it. And strangely, it began not with a lawsuit or a takedown post, but a message from a 17-year-old girl in Michigan. "Your story saved me," she wrote. "I thought I was crazy. My manager kept taking credit for my ideas, and no one believed me. But your words helped me leave. I'm starting my own business now." It wasn't the only message. They poured in from New York to Tokyo. Designers, writers, coders, even people in fields completely unrelated. The message was the same. I thought I was erased. But I see you. And now I see me. It became bigger than me. LYSS and Co. turned into more than just a freelance studio. It became a movement. We started a collective, the Unsilenced, a community for creators who'd been buried, ghosted, or manipulated out of credit. We hosted virtual panels. We shared resources for legal protection. We taught young designers what I never learned in college. Your ideas have value. Your name belongs to you. Keep receipts. Always. But with growth came new challenges. One day, I got a message that made my stomach knot. Claire is joining the panel at CreateCon next month. She's headlining the Women in Leadership session.
Of course she was.
The irony stung. The very platform meant to uplift creative women was putting a mic in the hand of the woman who tried to erase me. But this time, I had a choice. Hide in the shadows. Or step on stage. I chose the stage. Simone helped me secure a last-minute slot for the panel titled, "When Credit Goes Missing, The Fight for Ownership in the Creative Industry." I didn't name her. Not once. But I told my story.
Piece by piece.
Slide by slide. And as I spoke, I didn't look at the crowd. I looked at the one empty seat in the second row. I imagined the version of Alyssa who had cried in the stairwell bathroom on her last day at Brightnest. And I said the words she had needed to hear. You are not dramatic. You are not replaceable. You are not the problem. You are the proof they're afraid of. The crowd stood. Some were crying. Some were holding their phones up, recording every word. And when I stepped off stage, I didn't feel nervous anymore. I felt free. 2 weeks later, Claire posted an apology on LinkedIn. I've made mistakes. In the past, I let ambition cloud my integrity. I never gave proper credit to someone who helped build a campaign that shaped our agency's trajectory. I am deeply sorry. She didn't name me. But again, she didn't have to. Everyone already knew.
Ben?
He left Brightnest quietly. Rumor was he joined a startup in Denver. I never heard from him again. But I did hear from someone else. From Gina McAllister, the VP of brand at Asenia Skincare.
Remember them?
The tech brand turned beauty brand that had run my campaign under Claire's leadership?
She messaged me.
I owe you a call. I had no idea. Let's talk.
We did.
She was graceful. Embarrassed, yes. But genuine. She asked if I'd consult on their upcoming global campaign. Under my name. With full credit. Top dollar contract. Creative control. I said yes. Not for the money. But because that campaign would be the final chapter. The Phoenix moment. Designing it felt sacred. Every sketch. Every font. Every color choice had meaning. The campaign centered on resilience. On skin that heals. On people who grow stronger from damage. I titled it, We Remain. The day it launched, I walked into Times Square and watched my design light up the biggest screen in the city. My name was at the bottom right corner. Small. Elegant. But visible. Creative Director. Alyssa Morgan, LYSS and Company. I stood there, next to Mia, in a sea of strangers and cried. Not because I had finally made it, but because I had finally taken back the pen. Let me tell you something, if you're listening now. They will underestimate you. They will mistake your kindness for weakness, your silence for submission, your humility for invisibility. And when they do, they'll think they've won. But remember this. The quiet ones are the most dangerous. Because while they're plotting your fall, you're building your rise. One day they'll say, "We used to work with her." But you'll just smile. Because you'll know the truth. They didn't work with you. They worked because of you. And they didn't erase you. They made you unforgettable. So here we are. If you've stayed with me this long, you know now, this story was never just about one stolen campaign, one toxic boss, or one woman fighting to be seen. It's about you. It's about every person who is told to be quiet for the sake of keeping peace. Every creative who is laughed at, silenced, or discarded like a tool instead of honored like an artist. Every woman who is called emotional for standing her ground. Every soul who is made to feel like a ghost in a room they helped build. Let me ask you something. How many times have you second-guessed your worth because someone else couldn't recognize it? How many times did you shrink yourself to stay palatable, to be easy to work with? And how many times did you walk away from a room thinking, "Did I imagine that? Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I wasn't good enough after all." Now hear me. You didn't imagine it. You were never too much. You were never not enough. They saw your light, and it made them uncomfortable, so they tried to dim it. But stars don't stop burning just because someone closes their eyes. You may feel erased now, invisible, replaced, forgotten. But your story isn't over. And what they didn't know, what Claire, Ben, and the entire illusion of power didn't know, is that you were not disappearing. You were transforming, like fire under pressure, like ink settling into the skin of the world. I've learned this. Being underestimated is a weapon. Being erased is a test. And silence, when wielded with intention, is the loudest roar of all. You have two choices when life tries to delete you. 1. Accept the vanishing. 2. Become so undeniable, your name echoes louder than any lie. The truth is, I didn't get the last laugh because I sought revenge. I got the last laugh because I chose growth over grievance. Because I turned betrayal into blueprint. Because I realized something most people never do. When they take everything from you, they unintentionally give you the most powerful gift, freedom. Freedom to build something of your own. Freedom to love your voice again. Freedom to redefine your future on your terms. So, to whoever needs to hear this, let them erase the version of you they couldn't control. Let them rewrite the narrative in their boardrooms and back channels. Let them forget your name. Because you won't. Because you're about to write a new chapter. And it will be bigger, brighter, bolder than anything they were prepared for. If you're in that hallway like I once was, keycard deactivated, eyes filled with shame, just know. You are not a victim. You are the prologue to your comeback. So stand tall. Say your name. Say it again. Until it rings like thunder in rooms that once fell silent when you walked in. And when your moment comes, when your design lights up a city screen, or your name rolls by on a film credit, or your words make someone across the world whisper, "That's me," remember. This didn't happen in spite of what they did to you. It happened because of who you chose to become. The girl they tried to erase? She's now the story everyone's telling. And this time, she's the one holding the pen. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine 5 years from now. Someone says your name in a meeting room, on a podcast, in an award ceremony. Not with confusion. Not with regret. But with respect. Because you didn't just survive what happened to you. You rewrote it. And if someone someday says to you, "I thought you were gone," you'll smile and say, "I was just getting started."